tonight's a study session. The agenda includes the recreation, director job description and discussion. I'll give a brief, after that I'll give a brief overview of this Clearfield presentation that we'll consider. Final draft budget discussion, and it's not adoption tonight, we'll adopt it in December, but also with some fees that the Mayor and I want to talk about. And then I'll conclude with some budget investment discussion items. So Reggie's here tonight. I want her to be part of this conversation. She is, kind of like Troy, retiring next summer. Was it June or July?
June 30th.
June 30th will be your last official day with this. Well, your contract for school, the last day with us.
Yes, it'll be June 30th, because then Para will start my insurance.
Sure.
So that's on my wish list, if you'll keep me till June 30th.
Okay. We can
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see, okay.
So the board received the general job description. This is the same format we have all of our job descriptions in regardless. The salary range is a discussion point because Reggie has been, Reggie worked for many years with co-rec directors on school employees with school insurance. So a few years ago, Gordon retired. Reggie moved from half-time to full-time 3 hours a week. And then Gordon stayed on as pretty much seasonal, took care of the ball fields and helped when Reggie needed his help. So right now, part of the discussion tonight on this is how do you want to fill the position. I think Reggie has some insight and some recommendations for that. If you have any questions on the job description itself, we try to do it to where it covers the essential duties, and then of course there's all of the duties as assigned, some basic training and requirements for the position. Rec director, it's kind of like the town manager position. You don't have actually a rec director degree for the most part, which some places do, but it's a lot, depends on experience and skills, I think, so. But I'll turn over to you.
Okay. One thing that we talked about recommending, and I know you don't have to take our recommendations at all, but it just really helps to hire somebody that's from the town. I get calls at 8 o'clock at night, hey, can you come open up the gym? I get calls at 7:30 in the morning, Zumba wants to get in the community center. It just makes it really easy to have somebody that's in the community, and I think that understands the quirkiness of this community. It's a very quirky community, if you guys haven't figured that out by now. And I think it just really helps to have somebody that's available. As a rec director, you're on call a lot. Means somebody might not show up for a practice, or you might have a coach that's sick, so you might have to go in and cover that practice for them. So it's really nice to have somebody in town, because if you don't work traditional 9 to 5 hours, for sure there's a lot of weekends, it's evenings, Sundays. So that's one recommendation. The second one is it's just worked out very, very well having a husband-wife combo. You have your strengths and weaknesses or whatever, and it's just worked out really well with Gordon and I. am the organizer, and he took care of the fields, that kind of thing. And it was real flexible, especially when we were salaried, kind of both of us. Just because you do some weeks put in a ton more hours than normal, and when you have 2 people sharing the job, it just seems like it makes it more feasible, and it's not as cumbersome for just one person. And the other thing is it's really helpful to have somebody that's involved with the schools. I've been a PE teacher here for 18 years or whatever, and we recruit our kids pretty much by school. I have registration forms in hand, and I'll hand it to a kid and say, hey, go tell your mom you're going to play basketball or whatever. So I just think it helps a lot to have somebody that has a good working relationship with the school and possibly is involved somehow with the schools. So those are the 3 things that we've seen that has really, really worked well in our position. Not to say that you might change, how it goes, but just saying, over the 16, 17 years I've been here, it's been a really good partnership with the schools and the community. We have people knock on our door and hand me a registration form. Not that you want that to happen, but it's just a close community, and I think the community would trust a community member if that's if that makes sense.
Yeah, no one find you.
Yeah, exactly, they do, exactly. I'll be walking down the road and they have their registration form sometimes.
New rec director, they lock the door at 6 and close the lights on.
Exactly, exactly. But those are just some things that we found that, you know, it's been just a really good partnership with the town and the community and the schools. So we kind of like to see that positive relationship keep going.
And it's been a unique situation. When I came in '04, Reggie and Gordon have been here a few years, since '99. You started first in Gordon, I think. And got to know them, cause I coached a lot of stuff with my kids, and it was unique because they were both teachers plus co-rec directors in the same district. So, and we're a rec department, we're not a district. So we're one of the last few quote dinosaurs around. A lot of towns have recreation districts that are funded separately. I think us and LaSalle and Kersey, and I can't remember who else. Actually, yours are paid for by the town, not from special revenue funds.
Fort Lupton is.
Fort Lupton is too. Okay. I didn't know if they had a rec district and center, if they had that through them or no.
And Wiggins
No,
is
they don't
just
have
joined
a
our league, and Wiggins is the
They
same.
just have a rec center. Okay. But so is the key issue, I don't think the job description is in question, it's just how to fill it. I think the intent was to look for a full-time rec director and then have someone assist, at least my perspective, someone assist like Gordon is now with Reggie, where they're maintain the ball fields. Gordon and I had a long talk. I mean, as long as I've been here, the ball fields have changed drastically. And that's our only really rec feature that we own. We use all the other school facilities, football field for soccer, the gyms of course for volleyball, basketball. So that partnership, and we have an idea with the schools, the facilities use agreement, where we don't charge each other unless there's additional maintenance or cleaning involved. So otherwise, there's really no money transfer between the school and the district. And it's been a good relationship.
And that's very unique. I mean, you go out to Weld Central and they get charged $300–400 a day to use those gyms out there. So it's just such a nice thing that we have that good relationship with the schools.
Yeah, it is. It has been.
That's something that won't change though, will it?
No, I don't see that happening. I mean, whoever comes in is gonna, like Reggie indicated, regardless of whether they live here or not, they're gonna have to establish a pretty strong relationship with the school and the principals and the staff, because their facilities are crucial to our success through the rec department. Just because, I mean, we have two large parks in the ball fields, but all of our winter sports are relying on their facilities, basketball and volleyball.
And dance goes in there too.
And dance too. I don't know, I'm open up for more conversation right now and see what your thoughts are. I really had a plan on advertising. I mean, Reggie Gordon's very unique. They've done a wonderful job of, but I really wasn't advertising on a husband-wife duo. I was going to advertise as a full-time position. Right now it's slated for 30 hours. It could be 40, based upon your discretion. But we want to leave some money in there for that seasonal part-time help. And someone could come up and say, you know, I want to be your full-time rec director, but my husband or my brother or whoever may want to help me. As an example, I'm just throwing out scenarios. But I don't know, just different ideas.
Would we have some hired soon enough to where there's some crossover for like May, June to before you leave? So there's some of that.
That's what we were talking about. And even if I need to work part-time, and get us through the summer or whatever, I'm happy to do that. And even if you wanna get Gordon out of the picture, cause he's kind of my assistant right now, and bring that person on sooner, maybe as a part-time basis till I'm finished, and do the training then, whatever would work better for the town. But Gordon's pretty flexible. He'll keep helping me, or if we need to say he's totally retired now and bring on that person a little bit earlier to transition, it's fine.
And you're right. What I was thinking is advertising probably April time frame, and because May is the start of really the summer season with softball, followed by baseball, and there's a lot of teams involved and a lot of maintenance, because again, that's our only facility we have to maintain is those ball fields. is looking at a 2-month kind of work together transition before Reggie, and Gordon could step down sooner once he realized ball fields are in good shape. But,
Good luck with that.
good luck with
Yeah,
that
or
one.
even if you had to, you know, both of us work part-time and Gordon could train the person on the ball fields and I could, you know, train the paperwork part of it and.
Yep.
So we're pretty flexible and if, you know, and if we're willing to stay as long as it takes to get the person trained. Cause we've spent a lot of time doing this and we have a pretty vested interest in it and we love the kids in the town, so.
And your suggestion was start after the registration of softball and or during or before?
I'd like to have somebody actually hired and in place the first part of May, and then they could work with Reggie and Gordon, or they may be in May and June, until Reggie formally steps down June 30th. So they have 2 months learning the system, talking about how the seasons go. There's a lot of detail involved, obviously, with how Reggie and Gordon have had to run it. I mean, they don't really have an office. It's not like everything's scheduled out. They're gonna have to explain all that. And to me, a lot of it is a lot of greet meets and getting to know our parents. I know when I came here, that was huge. Getting to know faces and names and contacts, resources, other rec directors, all the contacts of all the suppliers, from all the equipment and items that they get, their trophies, so on and so forth.
And we are in 4 to 5 different leagues, recreational leagues, so that would be a good thing, you know, for them to come to some meetings with us and get acclimated that way too.
So kind of to continue with that, May would be kind of a transition learning month for the new rec director, then June they could probably just run with it if things go well, and Reggie and Gordon can just oversee. They'll still be on the payroll, but they'll be more of an oversight and address issues with it.
I was just thinking, when is softball and everything, the summer sports start kicking off? Is that May?
May.
Okay, so they will be in that transition there. I didn't know if start maybe a little bit earlier to kind of get their feet up underneath them rather than like all in right at once.
And softball does start April 1st. Softball's a month earlier than baseball, T-ball, coach pitch. We do it through Indian Peak, so.
That's right.
But we share it with LaSalle. Softball is not big here, so we do the 8s and the 12s, and then LaSalle does the 10s and 14s.
I was kind of looking for like a sweet spot there where you can get an idea what's coming up and then all of a sudden then softball registration, all summer sport activity registration starts hitting. So the person isn't like blindsided with all of it all at once.
Yeah.
So I know everybody's felt that way before. It's like, okay.
You want to put in the fire or what?
Yeah. I like warming up a little bit. Don't pull it.
Well, we just have to, we started a little earlier, say in earlier April, there's still, already still in the payroll through June, so we take that into budget consideration. It'll be a 3-month transition over. And when we hire somebody, it could be at a lower amount, honestly, until that transition is complete, probationary period. And then they would get bumped up in salary once they have a firm handle on what the position is and they're doing everything themselves.
Okay.
And that's not uncommon.
I just didn't want to set the person that we hire, you hire, up for failure, because they kind of got an idea what's going on, but not.
Well, as knowing Reggie Gordon as I do, they're not gonna let him fail.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I have confidence in them as well. I just don't want to overwhelm them too, and they're like pulling their hair out, like this person doesn't know what the heck they're doing. No, listen, you know, I mean, it's just a lot going on.
And this new person may have their own ideas and new ways of trying things too. You know,
True.
It's part of the job,
New ideas.
you know, they see what's established and then in time it's like, well, I wanna do things this way as long as it's successful. And the biggest thing is response from parents, I think. I mean, they're your day-to-day evaluators when it comes to the rec department.
Right.
Of course, kids in the schools. So,
Has there been any talk around town on interest on somebody wanting this job? Okay, so you do have some
I
ideas.
have 3 definite people that all would be amazing, and so they're. But I'm sure you'll get quite a few more applications.
Will you be part of the hiring process, like?
I don't think it's a board appointed position,
well,
right, so.
I thought it was, and Andrew and I talked, and I never hired a rec director, obviously, because she's
Okay,
been there
yeah, I
longer
know
than
you're
me.
welcome to do, right?
But it's a position I feel like police chief and public works director, but
Right.
what I've typically done even with the police chief position, I didn't hire David, he was already here as well, but I put together a committee involving 2 elected officials, a couple of community members if possible, and then a couple of rec directors from, maybe Fort Lupton and Kersey or LaSalle. And I step out of it. They do the interviews and do the selection process and then make a recommendation to me, and then I'll ratify that. It's ultimately, I have to do the hiring.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I would, just like when I hired Carl's predecessor, I didn't do the interviews, I stepped out and had the panel do that for me. That were experienced in doing exactly that. That way, I'm really serious on that position. Cause I live here too.
And I would prefer not to be on the committee, because I think it, because I've lived here so long too.
I
it would
really
be
wasn't gonna
hard.
ask Reggie Gordon, because that's, to me, that's kind of awkward. That's kind of, definitely want their input at this point. But does anybody have any ideas on thoughts, process, other than what we talked about so far?
I don't see, my only thought is I don't see that there's enough money here to really entice someone to do a full-time gig and pay a lot of part-time work.
Well, what we probably do is combine Reggie Gordon's current salary to the mid-50s. And then, with the consideration, all the other department heads are at least 60 or over, as far as $1,000 and over. So that would have to be a budget consideration. Because there's a lot of years where Reggie Gordon really didn't get paid bumps because the town, it was pretty nominal. Because it was kind of a part-time, full-time job. So this is going to be a different situation, by all means. But this is currently what we have in our budget. Of course, that talk's going to come here in a few minutes.
And if somebody had like a 4-year degree, because there are recreation degrees,
Yeah.
there are 4-year degrees, would you pay somebody higher if they had a set degree in recreation?
Yes, that would be definitely consideration.
Right.
The other thing is, if we hire one person and then have part-time assistant, that's hourly, whatever the case may be. Look at the healthcare situation too. Because right now, even though Reggie and Gordon transition, we're only paying for Reggie, and she's brought Gordon on through her longevity benefits. But if we would have hired co-rec directors, technically the town would, if they're both, they're part-time, full-time. So we gotta, it complicates things. Because neither one qualifies for healthcare.
So that part-time would all.
Because they're both part-time. And then when Reggie and Gordon worked out well, because they had school coverage for healthcare. So I'm still leaning toward having somebody more than 38, 40 hours a week full-time. Because that healthcare is going to be a huge enticement. And then they'd have to, they'd be able to hire their own, part-time person, whatever the case may be. I definitely agree that having in the budget somebody seasonal in the summer just to maintain and oversee those ball fields is very important, because we invest a lot of money in those. I don't think a rec director would have the time to do that plus organize the programs. That's my personal opinion. So I definitely think that needs to stay in the budget. So that's good.
We've made it kind of complicated, the way it's worked for the last 18 years. It's been
It's
kind of a
very-
unique situation.
It is very unique.
And hiring this part-time would primarily just be taking care of the ball fields during the summertime. Or what else would they help with?
A lot of times, because right now, we have a lot of supervisors, like we run adult volleyball on Sundays, and then I hire a supervisor scorekeeper. So they're hourly. So looking at, it would be hard for one person to do everything, in 30 hours a week. So we've always had kind of a
So they're
full-time and then like an assistant,
Okay.
right?
I was just looking at the maybe an option of getting a groundskeeper for the ball fields. But if they're an assistant, that kind of rules out that idea, so.
In reality, it's not a, it's not a like Monday through Friday type of job, 8 hours a day. It's gonna be, flexible, so you're not like clocking in, clocking out. It's gonna be some weekends, Saturdays and Sunday type position where they have to work and they just have to is it like a salary position,
It's
right?
a salary position,
So,
it's a department head.
yeah,
Yeah, they just, at first, years ago, they didn't even do timesheets, but that had changed because of requirements, and now they fill out timesheets that are pretty flexible. Because Reggie will sometimes work before school, during lunch hour, after school, and all day Saturday, and it just, and I've never had to check on them, so I can see it here what's going on. So, 'cause this position has probably more supervisors than I do. Because they're always being watched, you know, I just know that firsthand, but right now I plan on advertising in the spring sometime, we still have time to talk about that transition, we gotta figure out the financial piece to the budget. I think the budget for the programming is fine, it's just gonna be the salary and the part-time position we have to talk about.
And this isn't set in stone, we can tweak this as we go between now and when we decide to put this job description out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for the code, I got the job description, Philip, but you approved the job description. So I'm open to any ideas, suggestions.
I wasn't aware of that. It was my understanding that these type of personnel matters fell more under your umbrella than
They do, but
rest us.
you approve what positions I have filled. So I'm bringing this one to the board instead of just running with it because it's been a unique for many, many years. And I'm not really wanting to advertise it as a husband and wife combo. That's just the way it's been, but that's not what I'm comfortable with. If we end up with that, but one of them takes the director's position, then I'd be okay with that. And if they, because the nepotism policy doesn't affect part-time and seasonal. It's only a full-time issue. Like, you know, I could hire my son to do ball field maintenance like I did years ago under Reggie Gordon, but I couldn't hire him as a full-time worker in public works. It's a conflict, I can't do it. So, but we can, I just want to have this first conversation. I know it's the first one we've had on that. We have time to talk about tweaks in the future. We have several months, actually, about 6. So if we want to revisit this or continue this at a later point, I'm open to that as well.
I think that'd be the best
Yes,
plan.
Okay?
yes, please.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Beth?
I don't think so. I had a wish list here,
Was it Christmas time or what?
just basically what we talked about, you know, that, you know, we'll stay on as long as need be to get the person properly trained. But I would like to work full-time until June 30th, so I have insurance. When I'm
Really?
old, I might need it.
Really appreciate the flexibility.
Oh, sure.
Yes, thank you.
Sure, and it's just, I love this town, and, I mean, these are my kids, I'm the PE teacher, I have them from their kindergarten, so I watch them grow up, so
Absolutely.
I love the town and the kids, so.
No, you're fine, we're done.
Oh, good.
We're still in Phoenix, they still wanna see me, right?
Okay, well, we'll talk later, and then when the board wants to revisit the actual job description, we'll do some of your upcoming meeting probably after the holidays.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Reggie.
Oh, you're welcome. That's
Thank
all
you,
right.
Reggie.
That's
All
all.
right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Sorry I missed you, Reggie.
All right, I'll good to see ya.
go Michigan.
Go blue, yeah.
Yes, woo-hoo.
Blue, bye. As far as, I do have the temperature, it's just the same.
Daze, didn't we?
Like that. And that's the hazard of teasing.
Yeah.
That's where this stays. That was a good call. No, it's all right.
And you don't have your iPad anymore,
Oh, I did read.
right? Oh, okay.
Well, actually, we're gonna do this and the budget on overheads here.
We don't have this ClearGov presentation, or
What's that?
the ClearGov presentation?
ClearGov, I'm just gonna show just a brief clip of what ClearGov is. This is something Ray and I, looked at. We received a brief demo from ClearGov. It's a pretty cool feature. This is their website, and you can type in municipalities, and they have a draft of Platteville, Wisconsin. Town of Platteville. And it's a transparency, it's a financial transparency website. Right now, we're on claims, we're not paying anything, so. But it takes our financials and puts it in graphics and charts that are very easy and simple for the community and anyone to look at. And it's very statistical driven as far as you can look at annual increases, population increases, estimations, ranks compared to other municipalities. They use, is it Mary, the census, just census data that they use for the most part?
I think they gather it from a lot of different locations. You know, government places like DOLA and, what's that economic development one?
Upstate Colorado.
Yeah.
See population by age, total households. I mean, this is some information I can even use for grant writing, which is kind of cool. Households, and then the household income, the economic section.
These actual Platteville numbers we're looking at?
Actually, this is what stemmed from 2012, 2013. And then I'm gonna bring up another platform. They have Pueblo West. This is one that has contracted with them. This is a much bigger community. And it shows their revenues or expenditures. This is their general fund. And you can go down to special revenue funds. They have all this data input into the system. So someone,
Where do they get the numbers?
What's that?
Where do they get the numbers?
We send them our financials and our budget, so they get all the financial information from us, and then on a monthly basis they update it, and they do everything behind the scenes.
Okay.
So, Far-Size community financially is about $2,000 annual commitment to pay them to do this. And some of it they said we could do, but I'm gonna pay them, I'm gonna make them do it.
And this is a benefit to be transparent to the community, is that why you're looking at doing this?
I am. Just,
Seems like the, citizens would be less likely to beat their head upside the wall if they're looking at something like this versus our budget.
Budget numbers, yeah.
and they have some nice graphs, they're very simple, and it really shows, revenues and expenses. Budget actual versus expenses, revenue versus actual budgeted expenditures. Reserve funds. Looks like Pueblo West is having some issues with reserve funds. Actually, they're going down. They must be using capital projects. And then it gives opportunity for people to comment. So,
Who monitors those, the replies and response to those?
Good question.
they'll probably come to us. I mean, right now, we have a comment or complaint section on our website, which goes to Mary and I. And then I'll either push it to Dave or Carl will respond, or Mary will respond. I'm assuming I didn't ask that question, I'm assuming it's the same way. It won't go to Ben, it'll have to come to us.
Right.
But,
This would also help the town kind of, it's easier to swallow the pill than increase water bill.
Absolutely.
Utilities,
So
it'll give them
utility,
more of a outlay of what's going on, where the money's going to and why.
yeah, this is, people wanna know, but it's not that they don't always wanna make an effort, I think it's a confusing process.
Yeah.
And this would really simplify that process if they wanna look at how the town's spending its money for multiple years.
Mary, is this getting more value in your opinion than us just making a page on our website that had some of this general information on
We could kind of pirate a similar design and create web pages. I don't know how ethical that is, but
Do you have
we
time
could-
for that? No.
There'd be a lot of data entry.
Yeah.
You have to think about it, it's a no.
Well,
Yes, you'd have to hire somebody else. to do
no,
that.
most of the web stuff would be just finding the little house and overlaying the graph on it and stuff like that. The data would be just pulling it off the budget and that part.
That's what I'm
I
saying,
don't
like,
think
it
that part
doesn't
would take
seem
so
like,
much.
I understand, and that would be something that would be a lot of initial time for you to make those graphics and stuff, but after it's done, next year you just take out the data and put the new data in.
Yeah, just replace the numbers. That's probably true.
Is this a month by month thing that they do?
Yearly.
No, it's, they
That'd be
update it all the
monthly.
time.
Once our financials come in, we send it to them and then they repopulate the numbers to make them current
You said the cost is $2,000 a year?
a year.
Costs us more than Mary doing it.
Yeah.
Would we be able to have a hyperlink or a link on our town website for people to click on that?
Yeah, they would link this, go to our website.
I think you do what's called a frame page. Have you ever looked at the meetings on demand? It just creates a look that makes it look like it's our website, but then it populates this different picture in there automatically.
Kind of like the idea that it's being done by a third party.
Right.
Not only is it a professional looking website, but it's an arm's length transaction, so to speak, from the board and staff. That the statistics are being accumulated by a third party, put in a format that's easy to look at and understand. It's not like it's somebody here that's trying to sell this to the town. It's a impartial third party. These are the numbers.
Well, that could also impact the performance of the staff here in town. They're having to take time to do this. Work on town
True.
matters,
Right.
send this information on. It might pay for itself.
How many years of history will
So would they put our data in there for the last previous years that we have so we have more than just our current year that we would have? Or would we start from this point forward?
Did we talk about that?
We did not. I imagine they would go backwards for a price.
So this
Yeah.
is just an example then, this is not, they don't have 2012, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
For Pueblo West they do,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I was just playing with, I just put everything in Spanish, I can put it in Slovenian.
Now, can you find English again?
I'm having a hard time finding English right now. Oops.
Upper left.
Yeah, that's right at the very top. But I didn't see that feature earlier, but it's not, mostly the Spanish population, they could look at it, we go back to the Bibles. See,
Yeah, there's
They have information in there.
That is our information.
This is Platteville.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty accurate.
When we submit the budget, it's public information, it's.
That's what they said, they take all this public. And they do this, and I believe it'd probably be a 5-year snapshot, because most of them I've looked at have this 5-year range category. Ours is, the last they did, and ours was 2016,
That's what same with Pueblo was too.
and Pueblo was 2016.
Has Pueblo got some good feedback from their citizens on this?
I haven't talked to Pueblo, but they did send me some referral comments from other communities, and I read through those. Are there some others close by? I know you looked at it, did some other towns close by to us have this already? Not yet?
I don't remember any.
Okay. Well, it's nominal, we can, it's $2,000, so this is something that if we just put a few thousand back as a reserve fund, you guys decide to go with, we can still do that after tonight.
Do they have a referral bonus?
A referral bonus?
Like if we refer other municipalities?
I didn't ask for
Yeah,
that.
maybe.
My God.
Always thinking outside the box.
Well, what I like about it is,
I'll tell you about the 20% discount on interest rate.
Is there a contract, so we have to sign for a full year? Or,
I believe it's annually.
oh, okay.
I'm just gonna check the school shit out. See, 2013. So Milliken doesn't have it yet. But they were saying on the conference call we had with them, that pretty much all the towns and cities of Colorado, they upload some statistical information on public records to build it, like for Platteville, a snapshot. And then, of course, they call and record them and try and bring them on board. So, I like, if they're big on board, I would like to feature even more, because then I can compare our budgets and resources to other communities, but it's not that point yet.
Besides, so it might have possibility of doing some other things to it down the road.
Well, and you said this will help with grants and.
Because it gives the demographics and all the, like the dollar grants, you have to have demographics. And statistical information for population, breakdown of by age. Like with the senior bus, I had to give them how many percent of senior citizens we have in our community. Household income, most grants require that. Medium income.
But us signing up for that isn't gonna make these numbers any more accurate. Is that true? Because we're only gonna provide them with budget data.
A lot of it's budget data, yeah. So I still have to check out.
Yeah, all that has to come from somewhere else.
Right.
Census or upstate Colorado, DOLA maybe.
Those are the three main ones.
But they do that research, or do we have to send that in?
They do that research. We only
Okay.
send in our
We-
financials.
Financials, and they do the other research there, okay?
Yeah, the financial piece comes from us, the statistical information comes from, and some financial information comes from those other, the census, because they provide household income data, so on and so forth. They want to get that from us. So anyway, that's clear gov. So we're gonna go on the budget next, and just wanted to see, or have you see this feature. They were kind of hounding me for a while. Finally, I agreed for Mary and I, Mary maintains a web page. We sat down, we watched the demo, and thought it was pretty interesting. But,
Yeah, this is really neat.
all right, going right into the budget. Since I sent this draft out to you, that's in your packet, David Green came in, the updated financials for October, so there's some tweaks, but I told you there would be because the numbers changed a little bit. I'm not gonna go through this verbatim. We mainly held off on this because of the election, and now that has passed, and financially the town, I would say, won't be as impacted as it could have been. But as just a few examples, I highlighted green so we can track it. I'll provide you an updated copy of this, probably put in the Dropbox, but our sales taxes are coming in higher even than anticipated, so I increased that a little bit. Animal licenses is a guessing game, but I bumped that up a little bit. I read your tax fund, even though they said it wouldn't be this high, it is. Got the money in. Direct fees, I had to bump this number up a little bit because the last financial update, a lot of kids are participating, and just little stuff. Fines, the police department, they'll eventually slow down, but I noticed 2 traffic stops in school zones today, so they're really bringing in some fines more than anticipated. So going back to the top, right now we have a little over $2 million in fund balance beginning of the year estimation. And part of that is year to date off the October financials. There's about a $2.142 million fund balance, and we are currently about $523,000, over $500,000 in revenue over expenditures in the budget. So revenues are coming in more anticipated, and we're spending just slightly under year-to-date budget, but revenues have come in more than anticipated. So going down to the general fund. I know this is confusing on the screen. Don't ever scroll down here. Your bottom numbers, right now we're looking at 122,000 give or take, and I still have 1 month financials to bring in, but I anticipate we won't be spending more than we'll be bringing in. But last year, if you recall, it was about 40,000 revenue or expenditure estimation.
Yeah.
So we're doing a little better this year, but there's a lot of money in the bank. I think I indicated in my staff report that I noticed there was a little over 800,000 in the checkbook. So I asked David Green to transfer about 300,000 over to College Trust so we can utilize that savings on that interest. So I try to maintain about $500,000 in our checkbook for budgetary purposes. And he said if you get a large grant next year for the sewer fund, that money is still used at the same checkbook, quote unquote. So if we got that grant, we had to pay some large bills, we'd keep a higher reserve in that account just for those expenditures. So, but during the winter time, we're not typically expending a lot in the next 4 months. So I keep the fund balance or the balance in the checkbook a little less and gain as much interest as I can. So, did you have any specific questions on the draft budget? Did you want me to go through the whole thing and show you every little update I did? I can do that. One thing I did right here on the other, this year we kept a $25,000 contingency reserve. I took that out because, like I said, we have almost $1 million in College Trust as a reserve. So I just thought, why even show that? If we need to dip in and grab $50,000 for something like College Trust, this is a simple budget amendment. And then one thing I didn't think about was that sidewalk fund. I knew we had to pay back the general fund because it's going to be under, so we're going to have to borrow against the general fund. I forgot to put that in the budget. So in the sidewalk fund, it shows a payment back to the general fund in 2019. Here in other transfers, we're going to have the general fund make this fund whole, so it's balance neutral at the end of 2018. So you have to have a balanced budget. And then when the money comes in around the first 4 to 5 months of 2019, once that 32,000 roughly is there, we'll pay it back. And then the rest of the money for the year can be used as sidewalk maintenance fund. So another little small thing, I was talking to David the other day in the water and sewer fund. He's looking at cost estimates for the SCADA system upgrade. You know, like right here. I had 10,000 in the water, but only 6,000 I think in the other. and his estimation is about 18,000 total, so I bumped that up a little bit. I made the water and the sewer match 10,000 each, but it really did not impact the bottom line, because this is a fairly large fund. And this is the water fund. Was the water sewer, David, you know?
It was water you needed to.
It was water, because sewer was already at 10,000.
Right.
And that will complete your all your SCADA upgrades?
That should do the SCADA upgrades until the building new facility.
Okay. And on the sewer fund, David Green, we're chatting about, getting the DOLA grant, using the money in Colo Trust, like here in the revenues, transferring that over. He said, in all actuality, he said, put that in as a reference, but it doesn't work that way in accounting. He said, you don't bring in revenue you already have. He said, so when the money needs to be spent, we'll take out a Colo Trust and put the sewer fund, we'll earmark it, but you won't show a revenue coming in. He said, the board just needs to know that's how it works, at least in his government accounting. Because it's not truly a revenue, it's a reserve fund. And one thing I changed is JVA sent us a bill, so I anticipate we'll spend half of that 50,000 this year and half next year. Maybe wrong, but it's an estimation. So that's kind of how I marked that in the water or the sewer fund. Sorry.
Well, hang on, I have a question.
Sure.
We're not marking that transfer. We're keeping track of revenues over expenditures. We're spending that amount of money, but we have that money earmarked, so it's skewing our revenues over expenditures, correct?
It will. You said at the end of the year, your expenditures will be over revenues, but the money will be in the bank.
Right.
So when we do our audit, he just has to show that to the auditors. Now I'll talk to him again.
If I may, with what you're asking, Mrs. Mayor, does that mean next year, if we end up, or the year after that, we end up expending that? So then it shows that our revenue over expenditures was higher, or our expenditures over revenue was higher, so then any funds that the board might be considering or looking at that as a ratio for potential raises or something? Is that where your question is going?
No, I just,
Okay.
not
I misunderstood.
necessarily, no.
He said, in the way this, he said, to truly have a balanced budget, he goes, it's revenues versus expenditures, including reserve. Like here you have 1.277 million cash. That's in the checkbook, that's in Colo Trust, so on. Those are the two main areas.
Okay.
So these revenues are the only revenues we got coming in, even though we have reserves.
Okay.
But our expenditures could be way more than revenues, which they will be. So we just have to explain that we're way over budget, but we have the money in the bank. We're using reserve funds.
Right. Okay.
See, unlike, some of these other funds, we do transfers to reflect that. Water and sewer funds, he said, don't work that way. The enterprise funds don't work that way.
Well, it makes sense, because it's like putting that $230,000 in the budget twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's just a reminder to me that we're gonna be using reserve money.
Okay.
So he'll probably take it out when the department's done, but we'll see.
It was already in their budget that we want one revenue 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So, I'm just going to scroll, the special revenue fund, there's not much tweaking here. Like in the cemetery fund, there was a little bit more in grounds maintenance, and so I adjust those numbers, round them up a little bit. So, out of the cemetery fund, I paid for some engraving to be done on our stones that we give away to people for the veteran memorial. That's a one-time cost, minimal. So, of course, library fund. So there's still the end of the general fund right there. So otherwise, that's all I had. It's pretty informal. I just wanted to give a brief explanation update. When the board adopts the budget December 4th, David Green will have the resolutions ordinance completed for the board to do that. You do it by revenues and expenditures. You'll approve the mill levy. We'll send that to the county. We'll send the budget to DOLA. Mary will provide the resolutions for non-budgetary items like the holidays and compensation. You have to approve a resolution for compensation for Mary and I every year. But those are typically year-end resolutions and ordinances that we do. That's how you'll adopt the budget on December 4th. I don't think I'll have the November financials completed, but this, I'll have to talk to David Green again after Thanksgiving, and this is the best estimate. Your budget doesn't have to be exact. Your audit has to be exact. So typically what happens is we adopt a budget, then we do the audit, and we end up usually having more revenues and less expenditures than anticipated, because I try to round up. So that's kind of what's helped pad that revenue resource or reserves over the years. So that's all I have for that. I know the board had tabled, this budget also reflects the 4% maximum. David Green put that in for salary employees. The agreement, hourly employees, and you tabled the salary conversation until tonight's conversation. So, you want to pick up on that now, then, unless you have any other questions? Okay. Otherwise, I'm gonna turn lights back on because my eyes are bad.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I actually have new glasses where you used to bring them from. Some people forget to bring their glasses off. Oh, real quick, Mayor, on your table, this came in today, this Bright Futures program, you may have heard about this. This is a scholarship for Will County graduates. Kind of summarizes, Platteville had 43 kids in the program, how much money they got. But what this really is doing is they're starting to ask towns for annual contributions. I had not considered that. I know they've lowered the annual scholarship from 3,000 to 2,000. They have to do FAFSA now before they get the money. They have to exhaust, kind of like with FAFSA, other financial resources before they get this money. I don't know we're at the point now to make any contributions, but I want to bring it to your attention. I still think what budget we have for 2019, we reserve for a local donation. That's my perspective. But this is something we can consider in the future. But if you want to, I'll put this on the agenda.
That's something the county gets behind quite a bit.
Right. And upstate, right?
Yeah, the county started this, right?
The county commissioners is there.
And they have a couple of sponsorships, through, I think, Greeley and one other. Evans, maybe?
Greeley, Evans, and I think LaSalle. Yeah, the city of Greeley and Evans have generously partnered with us
Yeah.
to begin this program.
This is an upstate project too.
Yeah, upstate, because it's trying to drive the employment force, promoting the workforce in Will County. In that first paragraph, EMTs, nurses, CDLs, chefs, mechanics, and more. And a lot of they also try to entice the students, which I have several, to go through Ames, but like the advice renewal. They're trying to bring that back a little bit too, I think. They're trying to downsize it. I think that the intent was always good, but talking to, like Commissioner Kirkmeyer, who's been behind it for a while from the beginning, it was utilized more than anticipated it would be. It really is. It's hard to get money for college. A lot of these kids have a hard time.
So they're getting more use out of it than they thought they would.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Money's dwindling quicker
So
than
Yeah,
anticipated.
And they were, part of the program, I remember when they started up, is if you do your donation through your tax return, and then you get some kind of rebate.
Property value.
Well,
And you still get that.
and you can still get that, but I don't think that as many people jumped on that avenue as they thought they would. So,
what the board had decided at the last meeting, what's built into the budget is a 4% increase for hourlies, with it being, it was a 2.8% cost of living and then a 1.2% merit. My question as a department head is, can we have a pool of that 1.2% to distribute to our staff? Because there may be somebody in Public Works that wouldn't get the full 1.2 or wouldn't get any of the merit, but there are some that might deserve, say, a 2% or what would be the equivalent of a 2%. It wouldn't cost the town anymore if that is a pool of money that the department head has the flexibility to.
So somebody would get more than 4%.
Somebody might end up with a 4.1 or a 4.5 or potentially, but I wanted to ask the board that, because otherwise, if somebody doesn't, if they're doing enough to stay here and they're doing an okay job, but they're not doing exceptional work where we necessarily feel like a merit would be deserved, then if that's not in a pool, then we can't use it to help compensate somebody that is doing an exceptional job. So I wanted to bring it up and ask your opinion on it and ask if that would be an option. It won't cost the budget anymore because that 4% is a total number that's built in.
Well, yes and no, because the 4% is based upon an hourly rate, so if somebody at a lower rate doesn't get the merit, but somebody at a higher rate, when they give it, you have to take that higher rate calculation in, because that 0.5% is going to be more money for a higher rate employee than a lower rate employee.
Yeah, and I understand that, but if the pool of money, if there was $100,000 in Public Works hourly employees, and 4% of that would be $4,000. 2.8% of that is already assigned, so 2,800 of it is gone. So, if we just take what's left of that pool and for an hourly employee that makes more, yes, if you give them $100 more or $200 more, it's going to be a 0.1 versus a 0.3% difference or whatever. You follow what I'm saying?
If you went down to the exact dollar amount, like you're saying, you could do it, but you wouldn't be run over, right?
And that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking to go more than what's already in the budget, because I'm not asking to give a 5.2% or a 5% to somebody. I'm just saying, if I have a lower paid employee that's doing really good work, and we give them a little more, and we have somebody else that's not doing quite as meritorious type work, they're putting in their hours, but it would not exceed. It would just be, in the example, if there's $100,000 in salary or in hourly wages,
Taking the merit from one and giving it to another.
yes, but it's not going to exceed that $1,200, that 1.2%.
That seems reasonable to me.
I agree, we have them in place as department heads for a reason.
I hadn't thought of it. David asked me, and I said, ask the board.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem. That gives them more incentive to the person that's not performing. Maybe step it up a little bit if they want that.
Larry's ciphering.
He's got something.
Yeah,
Does it show that now?
You take your glasses and you do that.
Yes.
That's the giveaway.
Yes.
That's your tell.
You're supposed to tell him. Sell it. Yeah, geez, guys.
I see what you're saying, David, and I agree with the premise that you bring forth. But effectively, this isn't any tidal wave of change in policy. I mean, you as a department head are given whatever the number turns out to be, 1.2% of your department's salary for merit pay increase.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes
Well-
and no, I don't think it that way, because we're not giving them 1.2% merit of their salary, of their budget. You're giving them 1.2% of that wage,
Based on their merit,
based upon their merit.
yeah.
So, yeah, you can still make the pool of it, it wasn't initially put in as a pool, you make the pool. It's department discretion, if someone's just getting by and just barely hanging on, they don't get the merit, other ones just really
Right, so you as a department head are distributing the 1.2% portion of the pay increase across the employees in the department based on merit.
That's what I'm asking versus,
How is that different than what is proposed anyhow?
Well, so one
Where's
employee,
the distinction?
one.
one employee could get 1.4% increase, and the next might only get 1% increase.
I understand that, but that's the same distribution of the,
It is, but that wasn't how we took it coming out of the last meeting, that
Oh,
every
okay.
employee had a cap of 4, that's all they had.
okay, all right, so,
That's what I'm trying to get at.
okay,
That there was no possibility of getting more than 1.2 merit, even though someone else got less. So David brought that to my attention, it's like, well, if someone's getting less and there's money available, someone deserves a 1.4 or 1.6, then that's fine, I'll have a preference.
okay. I'm good with that.
You confuse me or I confuse you.
Well, yeah, there's aspirin for that.
A lot more than that, Larry.
I need a bottle of scotch in the house.
Did we talk about some kind of a policy that we would have written up on pay? Did we ever discuss that anymore?
Well, when we left it, we were talking about hourly, and then there was a comment about, I asked the board to consider, you know, is it a time where, you know, with the salary, and I tweaked this, I didn't change the numbers, I just put it in a different format. Salary for myself, and of course Mary, deputy clerk, based upon those communities, and you can manipulate this, we can go get different communities to poll and so on and so forth, but these are the ones close to us outside of Fort Washington. Reckon seniors, I mean, that's not apples to apples, I mean, but, police and public works, you can see. So what I was trying to do, and I think I confused the conversation, is we're talking about percentage for cost of living and merit for hourly employees. And then we got the salary employees. Now there's some talk about doing the same 2.8 cost of living, and they're talking about merit, and I said, well, what about just considering an adjustment based upon where they're at in this pay scale? And then there's talk about doing a cost of living with an adjustment, and that's when I said, hold on, that to me, I don't wanna do that, because that's not fair to all around, because that's just giving more on top of more. I mean, not like I don't wanna promote that, but it needs to be one of the other.
Well, yeah, it really doesn't do as much as your department heads do.
Well, I support my employees.
So what would be the problem with just applying the 4% raise to the department heads as well, without regard to the 1.2% or the merit portion, but a 4%
Straight across the board.
straight across the board for the department heads?
Yeah, I went home.
Simple, it's,
Yeah, and I went home and crunched the numbers, and I was happy with what they turned out to be personally. I'm in favor of 4% straight across for all the departments.
Okay. Well, I just wanna bring that up, and I'm gonna show one more graph, I'm not really confused, I was just doing a little bit of simple research. Larry, you brought up Social Security, so I did a little research on about the military, before you talked about the US inflation rate. I see there's different polls out there, but I wanted to see what the averages were in the last few years. Obviously 2019 looking like a good year. But there was some talk about in the future, that was that policy before you talked about, that we talked about,
They were talking about
having that baseline,
or that
using something
cost of living from.
that's published for your COLA, and then if the money's there, then you add to it for a merit.
Right.
So
What
I was just curious what these numbers would be.
what I had in mind as far as going forward is maybe a resolution, or maybe that's not the right format, but a sense of the board resolution or fill in the blank, how you wanna describe it, that it would be the intention of the board going forward to want to provide pay increases based on some one of those statistics you just had. At the same time, not word it in such a way that it's so rigid that we can't escape it if we have to. Not because we want to, but there could be outside revenue changes that the town has no control over, whether that's property tax, sales tax, what have you, or expenditures for some reason that pop up that we have to address, have no choice about. But it conveys a message to the employees that the board has the intent anyhow of, pick one of those lines, Social Security, matching pay increases with Social Security percentages. But again, not to word it in such a way that it entraps you into doing it. I mean, you don't wanna make it into a legal document, a legal contract per se. But it conveys a message to the employees that we have their best interests at heart and will, to the best of our abilities, follow that policy in the future. It gives them something to, they can plan their life around it to the degree that we have the ability to maintain that policy towards salaries in the future.
I believe the town, the attorney said that we could, that whatever policy we would make, that we would be able to get out of it.
We would have to.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody would understand
But if we could have
why
something that's the baseline.
we're leaving it open-ended.
I like the median of these three numbers, which turns out to be 2.8, which is exactly what we said, but, you know, some years inflation may go up where COLA doesn't, you know, or Social Security or military, you know, whatever.
When two are real high and one's real low, like 2017, it's usually a little bit.
Yeah, didn't we talk about moving forward with this policy, like February, March-ish?
Yeah,
But for now, we need to just decide
exactly.
what we're doing with our budget.
And going back to the policy conversation, one thing I was gonna say is that policy is gonna end with a couple of statements based upon budget appropriations, because we're government, and a balanced budget, number two.
Yep,
It has to have those two factors on it.
I love that.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
Like every year, it's such a huge discussion to talk about what we're doing for salaries, and we need to try to get to where it's not a big issue to go through, and everybody has to, you know, we get new board members and stuff, you always have to rehash about where we're at with things, and then we have some like policy on how we're doing it and the direction that we're going with it, then we kind of have that baseline to work off of.
Without,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly, that's exactly right, yes. Keeping mud at bay, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. I agree. As far as 4% for department heads, how does everybody feel? What are your thoughts? Got a few weeks to stew it over. Sit down and have tea with it.
I think it addresses the fact that the salaries here in Platteville are on the lower end of comparative communities nearby.
Right.
So that it helps narrow that gap
We're talking about,
in a prudent fashion.
the salary positions are the clerk, the public works, police chief, manager, just these four.
We're not talking about the manager.
Yeah.
Right, not even the manager.
The police, public works, course rec, and then town clerk. These are the three, 40 hour plus a week. Right now, Rex not. So, Public Works, you can see where the scale is, and some towns don't have, they contract them out. Police, same thing, they have contracts for the, of course, we cover the Gilcrest.
It looks like all three positions are kind of in the middle. Is there one that's further disparate than the others? When I was looking at it before, it seemed like it was the police chief. That's where my head was at, was that we would do the 4%, but maybe we try and find.
As a cop, look at the far left, Kinmouth is a place to work if you're gonna make money as a cop. Chief, sergeant, officer, I mean, they're willing to pay out big bucks, but they've got a lot of revenue coming in.
And
Out of the-
60,000 homes.
A lot of growth.
Exactly.
Rooftops.
Right.
Exactly.
Being built this year,
I mean,
60,000.
in Kenmouth,
In, yep, 2018 and 2019. Yep.
If you look at them, I would say, on the scale, all three, I mean, I'm not trying to be politically correct, but all three in my mind are right there in the middle, but there's only 3 or 4 behind them, because the last 2 or 3, you can't even count, it's their contract.
Right.
Even in, with,
So that's still a lower end.
So there's not like one that needs to be brought up to even get it to the middle or the rest. They're all just kind of.
well, to me, I would do all of it if you did that.
Exactly, right.
But then something else to keep in mind too is they're all discussing budget just like we are, and theirs are gonna be moving in and out.
Going back to, college, you drop the highest, you drop the lowest, you come with the average median, or you can play all kinds of statistical games.
So we kind of figured out we had like a $70,000 goal, right? That was the number that we had of money to give raises. Is that what we're?
I don't think we ever talked about pool.
There was a amount that we had decided that we had to give for raises. This was just generality that we had talked to, right? So
oh, last year.
it was around 70,000, maybe because each percentage was around $13,000.
Oh, yeah. I tried to,
Larry did some rough numbering as
I
he
tried
does.
to ascertain what other portions of the employee costs increase with an X% pay raise. The para contribution goes up.
Work comp.
Workman's comp, there's any number of other things that go into or need to be factored into the cost of a raise. But I came up with a number approximately $13,000 to $14,000 per 1% townwide. So that if you gave a 4%, let's make it simple, a 4% across the board pay increase to every employee regardless, no merit considered, just 4% straight across the board, that it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000 increase in the budget for salaries and related costs. So, not Social Security, but the para goes up, comp, there's
There's some
several
numbers.
other
You get
parts.
adjusted, pair, cause it's percent contribution, work comp, kind of the same thing. Those are the main two.
Right. They're just costs, but they're not part of the salary. But they're very much related to salary costs, the employer costs of having an employee. So it's not just all what's in the check.
And the insurance as well, because CIRSA also has a gauge. We have to insure based upon, number of employees and salary as well. So there's different factors that Larry's talking about, but it's a budget impact issues all it is.
Right. Is it possible to ascertain before the final adoption of the budget, the actual cost of increased salaries and related expenses as a separate line item, not in the budget per se, but just for an informational.
I'll just have David Green, because he's one that estimates that the pair numbers and the. Well, CIRS is built in, because CIRS is, Mary does that way before this, 'cause that's due by November 1. And she has to give them And it's really a pain because she has to break it down by, Public Works is the worst. Because police are police and admin, but Public Works, you've got 1/3 water, 1/3 sewer, 1/3 street, and you have those FT, full-time equivalencies that she has calculated, but those numbers impact.
They
that,
rate
so-
it based on standard pay codes
Yeah.
and the percentage that each employee works in that particular pay code.
Isn't that just like you?
Thanks a lot.
Of
Me
course,
being a
it'd be-
pain in the butt, is
Yes,
that what you
yes.
said?
Well, you gotta be-
Of course,
I'm
it'd be
just
public
kidding.
works. But you know, what I'm asking, I mean.
What I'll do is I'll ask David to calculate what a 1% across the board, townwide for all the employees would impact the budget, then you can just do your math to increase it, just do that. Okay.
What's your inclination for what should happen with the salary employees? As far as wages go?
That's a good question. I'm kinda stuck in the middle, you know that, because
What in politics?
Come on
I was
now,
just
come
gonna say,
on.
it sounds like
You
a
always say that,
politician.
let's hear what you.
Well, in all fairness, the other towns that we try to compete with, every time we give, the last 3 years at least, we try to give hourly raises. We've skipped several years for the salary, try to get them up to speed, and now we're kind of the same boat with salary across the board, so you can't win that way.
No.
So to me, in future years, I like Larry's concept that we don't leave one or the other behind. You deal with salary now at the same time each year. You may adjust them differently, but you give one something, you give the other something. That's my opinion, because you're gonna get further behind. And then playing catch up is gonna be an argument, because you're gonna have to have 10-20% to do that. I definitely think 4% is fair. I did mention about looking at, maybe this is not the year, but next year, looking at a little more detail where we stand in the market for these positions. I mean, I really am not prepared to discuss that tonight. But I think 4% would be the minimum, in my opinion, for these 3 positions.
What is your,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No,
That's why we're paying the big money.
Exactly. You knew it was coming.
But I looking outside the box is like, I don't want this to be a 1-year adjustment. I want this to go on to where we have a different philosophy and approach in how we deal with salary and hourly people. So, in past years, we had conversations, well, I'll just pick on David, he's right next to me. The public works director looks like he's making good money, but the lowest paid public works employee isn't, so let's move him up. Well, you gotta look at the whole picture here. You gotta deal with everything at the same time. That's my perspective. Because otherwise, you're gonna start lagging behind in different positions. So,
well, if you crunch the numbers between those two, we're looking at somewhere between 28.17 and 28 hundred, I don't know, $54. What about bumping them 3,000 each? And as opposed to the,
Department head?
yep, the 3 department heads.
then I'll bring up Mary's salary here, so. And that's another thing, just do a flat rate, that's equivalent for all 3. Every town clerk is jealous of North, and I can see that really clear right now. I'm not sure what she does more than you do, to be very honest with you. But I'm not sure what the Timlis chief does, or the,
Well, they have more rooftops.
yeah, they do. More golf courses up there.
For them to go find
And
them.
little
As long as
story.
they got one, it's more than Platteville.
Exactly.
And I could bring up comparisons throughout, but Meade, for example, because I've been talking to Meade, they have an engineer that's actually the public works director. And they don't have a cemetery, they don't maintain the sewer unit. I mean, you can do all kinds of comparables, apples to apples.
They don't do their water.
Yeah, they don't do no more. Timoth, I don't know what they have, Lock Bowie, they contract out a lot too. So it just depends. Right, though, this is rooftop driven, it's population driven. Meade's about to explode, Lock Bowie's already exploding. So. Plus, part of it is like me, when they hired their initial police chief, they're just throwing out crazy amounts of money just to, and, you know, stealing from other police departments. And their first chief flat out told me that when he came to interview one of our officers. He said, I'm here to steal your officer.
Yeah, and they're swimming in sales tax.
He says, I don't wanna train anybody, I wanna hire veterans, put them to work. That's just God's truth.
Well, they got the money. They, you know, what's the name of that auction house up there?
Ritchie Brothers.
Ritchie Brothers, yeah. How much do they send me every quarter?
Years ago, when Dan Dean was the manager, he says about $250,000 a quarter.
$1 million a year. Yeah.
That was right
several
before,
years
6
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, so it's probably twice that. Cause those auctions, that field is full of auctions.
You can't bid until you put how much money down?
Yeah, what brought you to piss them off?
I'm trying to remember
Move over here.
what the number was.
That was a big loss for
You
me.
have to put down 2 or 10% maybe of whatever you're bidding. Has to be in the deposit form.
That's why we buy cheap cones over there.
Right, I get it, sure.
So anyway, going back to,
I'll drive you over
next
next time.
conversations.
How do you feel about a percent versus just a hard number?
I'm fine with percent. If you give them a hard number, that would, give everybody the same amount, that's the only difference. A
For the
percent,
department head.
Right.
for the department head, because, I
The three.
mean, numbers are numbers.
Sitting in front of us.
The town clerk makes less than the police chief, so she's gonna have less of an increase than the police chief does. That's just a fact, based upon percentage. Or you
Well,
get-
Adrian's idea
Oh.
is a $3,000 bump for all.
or you do a flat bonus, then they all get the same level of increases, in theory, than a percentage. The same amount per employee.
I'm on board with that because the salary employees didn't receive the raise last year and now they did. Correct?
So what's
On board with which? The percentage increase or the dollar increase?
The 3,000 per for the salary and the 4% for the hourly like we talked about. So the salary would get a little bit more than 4%, it would be in the 4s still. But it would be a little bit more than 4. Based on the numbers that Adrian just came up with.
Just a $3,000 bump.
Straight across.
Yes.
So the lowest paid department head actually ends up with a larger percentage increase than
That's the way it works.
That's one way, yeah.
But even doing it that way, the highest paid salary person will still get more than 4%.
4%, that's
So
exactly
it's
right.
better for all three combined on these positions. So I'm not gonna say no against that, to be honest with you.
We haven't had a whole lot of turnaround here lately, which has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think that goes to our leaders.
Well, we've got 30 years' experience amongst these three right here. 15, 10, and 5. And I should have hired Mary the first time she came along. Otherwise, she'd have 7.
What do you think about that, Hope?
I'm fine with it. I've always been for salary people. I've always said I think they deserve a lot of money, because I see what they do. I mean, Harvest Daze alone is worth it.
Well, they definitely, like Adrian can see, and I know they're sitting right here with me, but they're not hourly, they're not putting in 40 hours and going home. They got extra time. I mean, like last weekend alone, Mary was down at the community center all day Sunday. Doesn't get paid more for that. Carl goes on rotation, he's short-handed. You know, David has to cover for cleanup week and different things, and I know they get some time off, but there's no extra pay, but you know, they start with a higher pay, I get that. But they also have the most liability of their respective departments. They're the complaint section, just like I am.
So how do you need a motion or do you wanna just?
No, this goes to the budget.
I build into the budget, then you adopt it through the budget adoption on this.
Right, so is there a decision that's being formulated as we speak as to which choice we're
Well,
going with here?
that's what we're discussing.
Right.
Are you
I'm just trying to wrap the conversation up.
If you're amicable to the 3,000 for them and the 4%,
Then we just tell Troy to
then we
move
say
forward.
do it and they'll move forward.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, and we'll approve it by approving the budget.
You good with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Pass that on to Mr. Green, along with your request, Larry, no.
We have to have a motion in our next meeting for this 1.2 merit thing that you guys can just pull it off.
It's how they interpret it.
Yeah, all your decisions in the budget, and that's a good question, everything from capital projects or whatever, you just make one approval on the budget, it includes everything in the budget. Okay, Adrian, we didn't talk about any fee schedule stuff, are there certain things we're gonna talk about, like cemetery or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it would be before going into budget, or maybe not, maybe we wanna do this again, March, April-ish.
Are there any gross infractions here?
Well, that's a good point, because Dave and I got a letter today from, Ralph Tellis, who's doing the financial part of the utility study. And it looks like they may be able to get that rate study done sooner than later. So, every time we change this, we have to, Mary has updated in the code and blah, blah, blah. We might be a little bit too soon on this, so maybe we could put this off till January, can we do that?
Do it all at once.
Because they still wanna increase the water 1%, we haven't done that yet, so I don't wanna do that without doing the sewer. So let's do that if we could.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
there's nothing too pressing, then we'll give more time about cemetery. And I talked to a few people last week, just out of coincidence, about, they were asking me about burial rates, and I told them, I said, my God, you guys are cheap.
Yes, I did some research today
Yeah.
and we are way cheap.
Let's get mine now.
What's the, just for my notes,
That's
what
insider trading.
are some of the rates that you want, things that you were?
Insider trading.
Mostly, so
Insider
with credit
It's
card
inside
service
on
fees, we charge 50 cents, right? 50 cents. And a lot of places, are $2.50.
Percent, right?
Or a percent.
Most places are 2.5% to 4% of the transaction total.
Cemetery fees, I'm looking, I would like to discuss non-residents. There's a lot of people, I'm concerned with non-residents who have nothing to do with Platteville, just wanna be buried here and take advantage of our prices. Well, we have the room now, it's like being careful when you call timeouts in the football game, you wait until fourth quarter to start counting that real carefully, I think we should be counting it before fourth quarter. Cleanup days, I'm not.
And then we have some time, because I'd like to double that from $5 to $10 a load, at least.
I just wanted to look at it, I just
Yeah.
wanted to look at it.
Police department fees are fingerprinting, right, Troy?
Fingerprinting, because that machine we have to pay for maintenance, or we just may stop doing it, but that's, for years, out of kind of a partnership with the school, because again, we use all their facilities for no cost. We offer the fingerprinting teachers for no cost. And normally that's what, $25, Carl, for fingerprints?
Yeah, and we're not allowed to use it anymore, for anything except for sex offenders.
Oh, so,
So it's a large expense sitting there for 17 sex offenders.
We're not allowed to use that, right?
No, they have locations now that we have to refer everybody to.
Oh.
Yeah, that's per CBI.
Okay.
So it's kind of just, I suppose it would be nice to have it utilized to, re-register sex offenders, but that's the only advantage of it, so we may get rid of it.
Okay. And then community center, when we get the renovations complete, are our prices on track for that, really?
Those are all things we kind of talked about before.
Yes, yeah.
well, a couple of things if I may, Mayor, is Adrian, or Mary and I talked about licensing that facility to control use of alcohol, and then having someone, that would also allow someone on site to monitor. Because we haven't had a true application for alcohol use at community center on recent rentals. But yet, or a lady who opens and closes and cleans says everybody got alcohol, so they're just doing it without asking. Plus, if we renovate it, put money into it, I want them tearing it up, so I want to license it, and then they would have to pay not only to get their alcohol from us, the licensed premises, just like Fort Lupton Rec center does and Windsor Rec Center does. But that person can also monitor damage and cleanliness and so on and so forth.
Right, because if we have on the application, if you're using alcohol, we make them have bouncers there, right? Or security.
Security.
Right.
And
Okay,
not
there you
Uncle
go.
Bob, it has to be legit.
Yep.
So the
Okay.
security that they hire would monitor our premises work.
Well,
Are
we
you saying,
license it.
are you saying we would have to
That's
hire
what-
somebody?
Depending on the event, say the Rotary Club Chili Cook-Off, they want alcohol. You know, that would be an event where we may just have one person attending bar, working as security at the same time, because Rotary Club's not gonna do a fist roll. But if it's a wedding issue, then it's like, okay, we'll be laughing, you know.
I'm just trying to figure out the staffing logistics of what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Typically, it's one security guard per 50 attendees, is what we've done before.
And Troy, if I may, Spencer, you weren't here. Right now, the way it's supposed to work is if you're having alcohol, you're to get a permit from the town to do that. We hire the security firm and you reimburse the town for the security. Thus why nobody's telling us when they're bringing alcohol.
Right.
Nobody wants to pay
They
that.
don't wanna pay for this.
Mhm.
So those are definitely changes, especially invest financially in that community center.
So we'll move that to, we'll table that discussion to January.
January 15th, because the first meeting falls on New Year's Day, so I'm assuming we won't have that meeting, so we'll have the first meeting January 15th. Okay, we'll just put that on January 15th schedule.
Okay, so then the budget investment discussion.
The reason I brought that up is Pink's Investment Management, he did a presentation last summer, they keep contacting me. They recently had I think it was 3.02% on a 2-year bond. There's some call trust accounts, specifically the perpetual care fees, because by ordinance, we can only use the interest off that cemetery, so it would be wise to invest that. The call trust right now is about 2.07, I think, last month yield, so it's not far behind. But it's just an option. I told them I'd bring it to the board. I don't know if 1% roughly is a big enough gain to lock your money in for 2 years commitment, or just leave it call trust. I mean, I just wanted to bring it up to the board.
It's literally money we can't spend. So why?
Perpetual care, we should just put in bonds. That's one that we can never touch. We only use interest.
Right.
The other ones are a little different.
Yeah.
You know, the sewer and water, investment fees. Those are 2 items. They both have 300,000-400,000 in them respectively. You could lock them in for 2 years, we're not gonna spend those monies for at least 2 years. So that's another consideration, so.
And it's a 50% gain in interest, right? From 2 to 3.
Basically 2 to 3, depending on how call trust, I mean, depending on the stock market and everything else. I mean, Larry could probably advise better than I can on the financial part, but
But as College Trust goes up, and so do the others, right?
it seems to have that. I mean, I can't.
We would be locking ourselves in if we went up. If we went up, we wouldn't see that.
Right, and there's a couple of things to consider. If in the water and sewer, for instance, you know you're not gonna spend the money for 2 years. And you lock in a rate today of 3% as opposed to 2%. At $500,000, you're gonna gain $5,000 a year over and above what you would get the Colorado Trust. So $10,000 over 2 years, which, considering the size of the investment, doesn't sound like a lot, but it's money you didn't have. And the difference between what the bank will give you, what these bonds would give you, is all gravy. Currently, the Federal Reserve is in a, and the economy in a whole, is in a, what they call a rising interest rate environment. It's the determination of the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates over the next few years, and they're going to. and probably well advised to do so, given they have a dual mandate, the Federal Reserve, is to try to contain inflation at the highest possible rate of employment possible. Well, a lot of times those two goals work against each other. You can't, in a perfect world, you could have both of those goals accomplished, but it's far from perfect and it doesn't always work that way. So they're always in this balancing act of trying to steer the economy, but they're operating on statistics that are 6 months old when they make their decision today. And trying to forecast the future, well, if you've got a crystal ball that works really well, I want to look into it with you and see what the future's going to be. So the other thing, I mean, there's a lot of different parts to this. You're going to increase the return to the town by putting it in a higher rated instrument, 3% versus 2%, which addresses the fiduciary responsibility that the board has to manage the town's tax money to the best of their ability within the constraints of the state law, which regulates what you can invest in and not. There's nothing that says you have to. You could take whatever the bank wants to pay. It's simple, you don't have to move anything around, you don't have to get a hold of this investment outfit and do business with them. You'll end up with fewer dollars. And the other thing that the board should be aware of is if you, for instance, tie yourself up in a 3% note for 2 years, and a year from now, you decide, for whatever reason, that you need the money today. You can get the money today. But if the then current interest rates are higher than 3%, let's say 4 for the sake of the example, the person who's buying the bond that you own wants to get 4% return on their money, because that's the current rate that bonds are going off at. If they're buying yours, they're gonna give you it, they're gonna insist on it, and the market will do the numbers for you. That you have to discount your face value when you sell it, so that the buyer gets the then current, in this case 4% return on their money. Because they can buy a new one for 4%. They don't need to buy yours. But they're going to get 4% one way or the other. So I say all that to say that if you sell the note before its maturity date, you risk losing some of your principal, because you're going to get less than the face value for the bond if you sell it prematurely in a rising interest rate environment. The opposite is true if interest rates are going down, but that's probably not going to be the case in the next couple of years. It's just something that you need to be aware of before you make the decision to enter into that. On the other hand, if let's take the sewer fund, for instance. If you know you're not going to have call on the money, you're not going to have to pay the contractor for this new sewage plant for 2 years, and you're certain that you have enough money in the other sewer funds to take care of the maintenance in between times, then there's no reason not to get the highest rate of return you can with the money that you know you're not going to spend for, in this case, 2 years. 1% difference doesn't sound like a lot, but it's basically free money. The difference between what the bank will pay you and what these treasury securities will pay you. not a lot of money, $5,000-10,000, but it's still, it's $10,000 you didn't have to get from someplace else. It just gets paid to you because you were smart enough to tie it up in a 2-year note.
Hey Larry, are bonds purchased in a fixed amount threshold, like 50, 100, 150,000?
$1,000 denominations.
1,000?
Yes.
So you can have an odd number.
Yes.
So one thing is, say, I think 337,000 is in the sewer investment fund, I believe right now, that's restricted. You can invest 250,000 of that. You don't have to invest the whole thing.
Don't have to do it all.
You don't have to do it all, you can budget part of it.
Right.
Well, can you tie those, add those up together, is it like we have about 700 and some thousand between those two fees and just invest like 500,000 of it into the bonds, or?
Certainly could.
Because their balances are 2 different funds, we could take whatever and add.
And knowing that
some
you're-
cash on hand, just in case we need it.
And in between times, you're still gonna get Colorado Trust
Interest
rate,
rates.
whatever term that turns out to be, and as the Federal Reserve raises rates, they'll be forced to raise theirs as well. It's just a market thing.
Just bonds are just slightly ahead of college trust.
Even if-
All the time.
Even if we put all of it, all of the 790,000 approximately that we got there, we still have the 649,000 in the college trust general fund as a cash on hand type thing, right? So there's no concern of not having cash on hand. So, well, there will be.
To me, there's always concern with the cash flow.
Yes, but there shouldn't be.
Yeah, because that doesn't include the 807,000, that's in the checking account that so what's in college trust that you see is actually different today. You just haven't seen the big number, it's closer to 800,000. But part of it is like budgetarily, the sales taxes, the sales and property tax are the two biggest things, so we're typically upside down in expenditures revenues the first quarter of the year. Until property tax comes in, sales tax catches up. But in government budget, unlike the personal budget, all that matters at the end of the day is December 31st, you have the balance budget. But I would say because there's other money in college trust that's just cash reserve unrestricted that I want to invest, I'd leave that because we're going to have stuff to pay for the planning for the sewer. So I could schedule this for an action item at the next board meeting because if the board took action, I want that documented and recorded that you're going to do an investment consideration.
The cemetery fund, on the other hand, which you can only spend the interest on, the consideration there might be towards a longer term bond.
The higher yield.
Although, looking at the rates currently, a 10-year is 3.15, whereas a 30-year note is only 3.37. It's only 1/4% higher for 20 more years.
And a 3 and a 2 year, whatever it is, 2 years.
So 5 years, 3%, and apparently there's some new ones that are out at 3% for 2 years.
Yeah, that's what they just came up with.
Doesn't sound like it's terribly beneficial to step
Well, I
up.
mean, for my money, I wouldn't touch a 30-year bond for all the tea in China. I mean, not for the meager premium that it pays over a 10-year.
The 2-year was enticing to me because it's short-term and it met our other goals, our objectives, the sewer fund, the water fund. And
Right.
perpetual care fund in cemetery, if there was a 5 or 10 year, probably not 10 year, probably 2 years fund. Because, you wanna get that to term, pull your interest, put it into the cemetery, then reinvest it.
Yeah.
'Cause right now, we're not putting really any money into the cemetery. So, I can put this on the action item next Tuesday. Is that what will work? Yeah, that Tuesday meeting.
Yes,
Do you need to have Pete's financial group here for that? or-
I can ask them, one of them, there's two partners, there's Roy Hunsucker, then the other guy's been contacting me by email. I'll see if they can come next Tuesday.
They might have up to date. Very good.
Well, he was laughing at me, because I said, well, we're coming last week, and I said, well, we're not meeting till next Tuesday. He goes, okay, and I said, what do you mean, okay? He goes, well, let's change the date. I said, I get that, I understand that, but I don't change the date, I have to schedule meetings.
What kind of fees do they take? You know?
They don't.
They don't, their fees are built in and the percent we don't save.
They actually buy the securities at a discount from the issuer, which in this case is the Treasury Department. They get a discount for buying them on your behalf. We get full face value. Their bigger issue is the discount between what they pay for them and what is on our account balance. So there's no fee involved.
Okay, so I'll bring that back to the next meeting. The fee schedule will be January 15th. I'll have David Green update the overall draft budget, give you a copy, and then next week also, what the budget increase overall would be on a 1% salary and hourly wage increase. Does that pretty much cover it? Job description will, I think January 15th, let's revisit the job description for the rec department as well.
Yes.
Keeping up to Mary? Okay. Otherwise, that's all I have for the study session for tonight. We do have a scheduled special meeting coming next.
We have a regular board meeting next Tuesday night?
Yes.
Is it okay if I say something? I just wanna say I really appreciate, the raises for both salary and hourly. You guys obviously are making a huge effort. I just wanna say thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, you didn't hear about the exception for the police?
That's a lot now.
You knew that was coming.
Thank you, Carl. We sure appreciate all of you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, he beat me to the punch, so I'll just say ditto and keep it short and sweet.
Well, you guys go and get some sleep. Carl, you haven't had much sleep last two nights. Thanks to.
You're gonna cry.
You gonna take a, well, not recess, just take a break and recess. We'll reconvene in the conference room.
Do we need to open the meeting out here though?
Oh, yeah. We'll reconvene, open the meeting.